when one is consistently stirred by the external world by words, histories, faces, even silence. It is not the world that screams, but the soul that trembles. I have seen in the depths of many minds a curious alchemy. They speak of others as sharp, cruel, manipulative, inconsiderate, ungrateful, and insensitive, not realizing that it is the part of themselves they have never dared to encounter that is making this accusation. And so the world becomes a mirror hall of demons, each trigger a distorted echo of a shadow they refuse to name. We must begin where all psychological revelation begins, the wound, not the scar. Mind you, for the scar has already sealed over and is perhaps bearable, but the raw wound, the still open sore of the psyche that bleeds even in the absence of contact, when something always gets to you, when you feel the same tightening of the chest, the heat behind the eyes, the collapse of the voice, it is not because the situation is objectively dangerous. It is because your soul remembers a danger it has not yet understood, digested or integrated. This is the realm of the complex, psychological complex. Let us recall, is not mere emotion. It is a nucleus of psychic energy bound by traumatic impressions, archetypal images, and the libido of memory. When someone says, "I don't know why this makes me so upset," I answer, "Of course you don't. If you knew, it would not be a complex, it would be a story." And so the persistent trigger is not a nuisance to be overcome, nor a flaw to be corrected. It is a great red flag waving from the deepest trench of your inner battlefield. Why does the soul react in fury to being ignored? Why does it despair when it is misunderstood? Why does it tremble at confrontation or implode when someone dares to challenge it? Because somewhere long ago, or perhaps not so long ago at all, something essential was threatened, buried, and forgotten yet not gone. It is here that the symbolic world rushes in to rescue us, for no healing of the complex can occur without myth, symbol, or dream. You see, the psyche does not speak in the language of reason. It speaks in patterns, in loops, in haunting dreams of a childhood home that no longer exists, or a recurring nightmare of being chased. These dreams are not nonsense. They are the coded transmissions of the unconscious attempting to shake the ego into remembrance. And if you are triggered daily, you are being called hourly into that remembrance. A woman once came to me weeping because she could not bear to be alone. Every time someone leaves me, even for a short time, I feel like I'm going to die. She said, on the surface, this would appear irrational, but the soul is not concerned with appearances. What she did not realize is that her trigger was a portal not into madness, but into memory. As we explored her symbolic world together, the true face of her pain emerged. A forgotten moment at age 3 when her mother left her alone in a cold room for what was to the child an eternity. There were no bruises, no screams, just the coldness of absence. But to the psyche, this was abandonment. This was death, and every departure since then awakened that archaic terror. The ego, you see, lives in the now but the unconscious lives in forever. It has no sense of time. So when something triggers you, you are not responding to the present. You are reliving the past in the sacred theater of the now. The man who becomes enraged when criticized is not angry at the critic. He is responding to the internalized father who humiliated him. The woman who collapses in anxiety when her ideas are questioned is not weak. She is still waiting for the mother who never listened. Until we name what is hiding underneath the trigger, it will possess us, and here we must speak of possession. Not in the religious sense, although the metaphor is useful. A complex, when constellated, possesses the personality. You say things you do not believe. You cry when you wish to laugh. You push away the very love you crave. That is the power of the unexamined shadow. And each time you are triggered, you are being asked not to lash out, but to turn inward. What lives there? Who is crying? Who is screaming for justice? Most do not want to know, because to know would mean to feel. And to feel would mean to descend, but this descent into the underworld of the soul is not punishment. It is initiation. In this, the hero always descends before he ascends. Orpheus must enter Hades. Psyche must wander through the dark. Christ must enter the tomb, and you, dear listener, must face the realm of your unloved self. If your heart races in social settings, what was the message you once received about your worth? If you are triggered when others succeed, what failure still whispers shame in your ear? If you become numb in conflict, who taught you that silence was safer than truth? There is no liberation from triggers without the radical honesty to admit I am not yet free. I am still, in many ways, a child who learned to survive by fragmenting, pretending, performing. And every trigger is a divine interruption to that performance. What the ego calls a trigger, the soul calls an invitation. And here we enter the realm of the archetypes. For every wound is not merely personal, it is also collective. The woman who fears rejection is also carrying the archetype of the outcast. The man who explodes in rage when not heard is animated by the wounded warrior who was never allowed to cry. These archetypes are not stories you make up. They are the stories that made you. And when you are triggered, one of them is speaking, not to harm you, but to wake you. What lies beneath the trigger is the ancient self, the one who has watched you sleepwalk through life, waiting to be seen. The dream you keep having of falling, the image that haunts you, the pattern you cannot break. These are not accidents. These are symptoms of a soul in bondage. And the soul in bondage does not ask for comfort. It demands truth. The truth that your pain is sacred. The truth that your trigger is not the enemy. It is the candle guiding you towards the wound. You forgot to tend, and so if you find yourself triggered again tomorrow, do not curse it. Sit with it. Ask it what it remembers. Ask it who it is protecting. Ask it what age it is. And then do what no one ever did for you at that age. Listen, comfort, and embrace. You may weep, you may shake, you may collapse, but you will not die. You will, in fact, be born. What I must say next may sound strange to the modern ear, which has grown accustomed to labeling discomfort as pathology, but I assure you there is purpose in the wound. If you are constantly triggered, you are not broken, you are being summoned. You are being called not to run from the discomfort, but to bring the torch of consciousness into the cavern of your pain. You are not here to medicate away your soul's cry. You are here to decipher it. The soul is not linear. It does not follow time. It does not obey logic. And it certainly does not care for superficial happiness. The soul wants wholeness. And wholeness does not mean perfection, it means integration. That is to say, all your unwanted selves, your abandoned voices, your exiled memories must be reclaimed. And it is the trigger that offers you a key. You see, when something outside of you stirs something uncontrollable within you, it is never about the outside. The external world merely lights the match. But the match would be harmless if your psyche were not soaked in the forgotten oil of childhood wounds, ancestral shame, archetypal abandonment. You are not only reacting as yourself, you are reacting as every iteration of yourself you have ever buried. The frightened child, the silenced teenager, the betrayed lover, the suppressed prophet, all of them live in you. And they do not die quietly. And so the moment of the trigger is sacred. It is an eruption of repressed psychic energy, an opportunity to meet what you have refused to face, that trembling in your voice, that sudden urge to withdraw, that irrational rage. It is not madness. It is residue from moments when your psyche fractured just enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. Most people fear this inner chaos. They want calm, clarity, and control. But I tell you now, clarity is born in the fire. You will not achieve calm by numbing your soul. You will achieve calm by standing in the very storm your ego tells you to flee. Now, let us speak of projection, one of the most elaborate defenses the psyche employs. When the trigger is too painful, too personal, we eject it from the self and cast it onto others. Suddenly the narcissist is always out there. The manipulator is always someone else. The betrayer is never the one in the mirror. This is not evil, it is survival. But it is not healing. You cannot heal what you have not claimed. The world becomes your canvas of disowned selves. That is why your triggers are so consistent. Not because people never change, but because you are painting the same image again and again, hoping someone will finally hand it back to you and say, this is yours. That is the sacred function of relationship, to reflect you back to yourself. And when that reflection burns, you are being shown where your love has not yet reached. Do you flinch when someone raises their voice? Perhaps your nervous system is still echoing the voice of a father who roared instead of held. Do you shut down when someone corrects you? Perhaps you are still trapped in a classroom where being wrong was a sin. Do you feel rage when someone seems distant? Perhaps the child in you is still waiting by a window for a mother who never came. We are haunted not by others, but by the unlived life within us. The shadow is not only darkness, it is potential. It is you, unexpressed. And if you are triggered constantly, you must ask, what parts of me have I disowned? What longings have I silenced? What truths have I buried under politeness? Fear and survival. The overgiver is not generous. He is terrified that love must be earned. The overachiever is not ambitious. She is convinced that worth must be proven. The Stoic is not strong. He has simply forgotten how to cry. The spiritual seeker is not always enlightened. Often she is fleeing the wounds of matter, body and time. And so your reaction, though immediate, is a symptom of a wound that has no language except pain. That is why we must not judge our triggers. We must study them. We must approach them like dream symbols, irrational, wild, but meaningful. The person who annoys you, they carry a part of you you've yet to forgive. The person who intimidates you, they radiate a power you've not yet owned. The person you idolize, they are showing you a self you have forgotten. The goal of this work is not to erase all reactions. That would be death. The goal is to render them conscious, to say, I see now, this isn't about him, this isn't about her. This is about the child in me who was not seen. This is about the poet in me who was mocked. This is about the divine in me who was told to be silent. Once seen, the trigger dissolves, not because it was false, but because it has served its purpose. Do you not see? The psyche is always trying to heal. Even the repetition is grace. If you are triggered in the same way over and over again, it is not because you are weak. It is because the soul is stubborn in its love for you. It will not stop until you turn inward. It will not be silent until you listen. It will not let you live a lie. And this is why I do not pathologize your pain. I do not label your trauma as a disorder. I call it what it is, the sacred fire of transformation. The alchemist knew this. Before gold, there is blackness. Before reunion, there is disintegration. Before rebirth, there is death. And if you are triggered, you are dying, but not in the way you fear. You are dying to illusion, to pretense, to the false self. And in that death, something astonishing happens. You awaken. You see that the thing that hurt you was never the problem. The problem was the silence that followed, the isolation, the shame, the disconnection from your own body, your own truth. And now, as you return to yourself, the trigger becomes your teacher. It becomes your oracle. So when the next wave comes, when your heart races, your hands sweat, your voice shakes, do not run. Sit, breathe, listen, and say, welcome, old friend. What do you have to show me now? You must begin to understand your triggers not as enemies, but as invitations to the hidden temple of the self. Every moment you feel disturbed is a sacred summons. The soul has no interest in stability for its own sake. It wants transformation. And transformation is not polite. It is not gentle. It is the cracking open of the hardened shell around your being. It is a storm that floods your controlled inner world so that what is buried beneath your normal may rise to the surface. Gasp, and finally be heard. I once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But what I did not say loudly enough is that the unconscious is benevolent in disguise. It hides, not because it hates you, but because it waits for you. It is not punishment that you are easily triggered. It is revelation, a trail of psychic breadcrumbs laid by the self, guiding you back to the places where you abandoned parts of your humanity in exchange for safety. Let us speak now of the dream realm, that liminal theater where the unconscious dances without your permission. In dream work, we find a mirror to our waking triggers. If, for example, you are often triggered by betrayal in waking life, you may dream of being left behind on a train, of arriving late to a place where everyone has moved on without you, or of a faceless lover walking into another's arms. These are not random symbols. They are living images, archetypal representations of your psychic wound. In one patient's dream, she found herself in a burning house. She ran from room to room, trying to collect her belongings, shoes, photographs, jewelry, but the fire consumed faster than she could gather. She woke with a pounding heart and told me, "I think I'm afraid of losing everything." But what the dream said more profoundly was this: you are trying to save your persona, the outer image you've constructed, while the soul is demanding a cleansing through fire. Her constant irritation at being misunderstood in daily life was not about the misunderstanding itself. It was about the unconscious fear that if she let go of being agreeable, pretty, and perfect, she would be consumed. The dream and the trigger were two hands of the same clock, pointing to the same inner hour. The time had come to stop protecting the false self. When you feel triggered, what you are actually experiencing is an unconscious archetype being activated. The mother, the orphan, the hero, the victim, the martyr, the witch. These are not fictions. They are eternal forms encoded in your psyche. If the victim is triggered, you may feel powerless. If the judge is activated, you may lash out in self-righteousness. If the child is awakened, you may freeze in helplessness. These archetypes emerge not to trap you, but to awaken you to the energy that lives within you. Energy that has been locked behind shame, conditioning, and forgetfulness. You are not broken because you cry. You are not weak because you rage. These emotions are thresholds. Feelings are the language of the psyche. And when they surge forth, unbidden and uninvited, they are not asking to be fixed. They are asking to be felt without rush, without shame, with reverence. Let us go deeper. Some triggers are ancestral. Yes, you may be reacting to a moment that never happened to you, but happened to those who came before you, etched into the genetic soulprint of your being. A man who fears speaking in public may carry the shame of an ancestor who was silenced for speaking truth. A woman who panics at the idea of intimacy may carry the grief of a lineage of women who were married to survive, not to love. The trigger, in this sense, is transpersonal. You are being asked not only to heal your own wound, but to cleanse the bloodline. This is why you cannot use logic alone to disarm your reactions. Reason can observe the wound, but only ritual, symbol, and deep feeling can transform it. You must build an inner altar, a place where the self you usually disown can come and kneel. Close your eyes and imagine this The next time you are triggered, not mildly, but deeply, you do not respond automatically. You breathe. You remove yourself from the battlefield and you enter your inner sanctuary. There, sitting by a small fire, is a version of you smaller, rather younger, or perhaps ancient and wise. And you approach them, not with correction, but with curiosity. What are you afraid of, you ask? What do you remember? And they answer not always with words, but with tears, sensations, symbols. In that moment, you are no longer battling the trigger. You are embracing the truth that was exiled in you. This is individuation. The process of becoming whole, not perfect. And in wholeness, triggers still come, but they no longer command. You hear them, you feel them, but you are not them. The goal is not to eliminate your sensitivity. It is to integrate the self that feels. There are many who seek to transcend the human altogether, to float above the pain, to vibrate past the wound, to stay positive at all costs. This is spiritual bypassing. It is the denial of shadow, and what is denied does not disappear, it festers. The more you avoid your pain, the more it distorts, until one day someone touches your arm the wrong way, says a word too sharp, and a hurricane erupts, not because of the moment, but because of everything you have buried behind it. Your healing does not lie in escaping your triggers. Your healing lies in turning toward them like a priest turns to the altar. With sacred respect, with holy curiosity, who would you become if every trigger was a trail? What wisdom would you uncover if, instead of defending yourself, you descended into the symbol? What would change in you if you saw your emotional eruptions not as signs of instability, but as soul signals, a lost child pounding on the door of your consciousness saying, it's time to come home. The moment of the trigger is the moment the self knocks. Will you open the door? There comes a moment in the inner work, a quiet, unspectacular moment when you no longer fear the trigger. You no longer brace for it, no longer curse it, no longer rush to suppress it. Instead, you recognize it like a seasoned traveler recognizes the curve of a familiar path. You do not run. You remember, and that remembrance is power. You begin to see clearly that your emotions are not betraying you, they are announcing you. That trembling is not weakness. It is energy moving through layers of armor you outgrew. That heat in your chest, that flush in your face, that wordless sorrow at the back of your throat. These are not problems. These are thresholds. Cross them consciously, and you reclaim what was once lost. The trigger is the bell, and the bell tolls not for punishment, but for ritual. And so you begin to craft your rituals, a journal in the early morning where your unconscious spills ink, a breath held in silence when you feel the familiar rise of rage, a whispered name to your inner child. I see you when panic threatens to take your voice. These small acts are not trivial, they are initiatory. You are becoming the one who tends to your soul. Now we speak of authority. For so long, your triggers ruled you. They chose your reactions, your tone, your withdrawal, your over-explanation, your defensiveness. But the true self, the one beneath the ego and beyond the persona, is not reactive. It is sovereign. It does not resist what arises, but rather it blesses it with attention. It says this too belongs, and in that holy embrace, the trigger dissolves. Do not mistake this for numbness. It is not that you no longer feel. It is that you now understand what you feel. You are no longer hostage to the unconscious loops. You are not reenacting your father's voice, your mother's coldness, your teacher's shame. You are here, present, rooted in the ground of your own being. And what a ground it is. The integrated human is not always happy, but they are always real. And reality, while sometimes brutal, is always fertile. You plant your pain into it like seeds, and in time, what was once a wound becomes a garden of understanding, of depth, of compassion, not just for others, but for you. Especially the parts of you that were never watered before. There is a kind of death that must occur before this rebirth, not of the body, but of the image you carried of yourself as someone who never loses control, who is always logical, who doesn't cry, who doesn't need. This image must die, and when it does, there is grief for the years you spent performing instead of living. But in that grief is gold, what the alchemists called nigredo, the blackening before transformation. And when the gold comes, it is not shiny. It is subtle. It glows in your tone when you speak to yourself after a mistake. It softens your gaze when someone else is triggered and you no longer judge them. It steadies your breath when the past knocks on your nervous system and you say, I know this place and I am not afraid anymore. There are no shortcuts here. There is no spiritual bypass. No affirmation can replace what must be felt. No mental hack can substitute for sacred descent. But once you have descended, once you have walked barefoot into the dark woods of your own psyche, you will never again fear the forest, because you will know you are the one who lives there. So, what lies beneath the trigger? Your shadow, your longing, your forgotten child, your silenced voice, your power, your birthright, the very parts of you that were hidden not to punish you, but to preserve you until you were wise enough, safe enough, loving enough to reclaim them. And now, here you are, triggered again, perfect. Let it rise, let it speak, let it guide you, because underneath that reaction is the soul's most honest language. And you, brave traveler, are finally ready to understand it. So listen